Welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a truly fascinating story about a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but is in fact one of the most extraordinary modern numismatic treasures ever discovered, the 2006 P5-cent coin, a nickel that has shocked collectors and investors alike by reaching a staggering valuation of around $16 million. Not because of its face value or the metal content, but because of the remarkable and rare errors and mistakes that make it so valuable. And as we explore the full details behind this incredible coin, we will uncover the reasons why a small coin like this can hold such immense worth, the circumstances that led to its creation, the different types of minting errors that make it unique, the mystery behind how such a coin slipped into circulation or survived untouched, and the fascinating possibilities of how collectors came to prize it so highly. Because when it comes to rare error coins, it's not just about age or rarity, but the combination of anomalies that create an irresistible one-of-a-kind collectible that can demand astronomical sums in the market. And the 2006 P5-cent is a perfect case study of how history, minting technology, human error, and collector demand all merge into a perfect storm of numismatic fortune. So let's begin with the year 2006. The Philadelphia Mint was in full production of Jefferson nickels, a denomination that has been a cornerstone of U.S. coinage since 1938, but that year saw a particular series of issues with the dies, planchets, and striking process, leading to a small number of pieces that exhibited wild and unusual traits which collectors call errors, and it is these rare survivors that turn a 5-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar marvel. Some of the most notable errors include double die-obverse strikes where the inscriptions, like "I in God we trust, Liberty," and the date 2006 appear doubled or shadowed, creating a dramatic visual effect that immediately sets the coin apart from regular issues. Then, there are off-center strikes where the coin was not properly aligned with the dies during striking, leaving part of the design cut off, and an unusual blank crescent of metal visible on the coin's surface. In extreme cases, these off-center strikes can remove crucial parts of Jefferson's portrait or the Monticello design on the reverse, making the coin both bizarre and intriguing. Another highly prized mistake is a clipped planchet error where the nickel blank itself was improperly cut out of the metal sheet, leaving a curved slice missing from the coin. These errors are immediately recognizable, and when combined with a 2006 date and AP mint mark, they become extremely desirable. Perhaps the most exciting possibility is the existence of wrong planchet errors where the coin was mistakenly struck on a blank intended for another denomination. Imagine a 5-cent design struck on a dime or cent planchet, lighter and thinner than a regular nickel. Such coins are virtually priceless to error collectors, and there have been reports of 2006 nickels with unusual weights suggesting just such an error. But beyond the specific types of mistakes lies the story of how rare it is for a coin with such obvious flaws to escape the tight quality control of the U.S. Mint. Normally, defective coins are caught and destroyed long before reaching the public, but somehow a few manage to slip out, and it is those few survivors that generate a frenzy in the numismatic world, because rarity combined with visibility equals value. Now, when we talk about why this specific 2006 P5-cent reached a value of $16 million, it is not just one single error, but a combination of factors. The particular coin that stunned the collecting world is believed to display multiple overlapping mistakes, possibly a dramatic off-center strike combined with doubling, along with evidence of being struck on the wrong planchet, making it a once-in-a-lifetime anomaly. Imagine holding a coin where every side reveals something offbeat and impossible to replicate. That uniqueness is what fuels bidding wars at auctions. Wealthy collectors see it not just as a piece of metal but as a historic artifact, a physical manifestation of human error preserved forever in nickel alloy, and that transforms a humble coin into a treasure on par with the world's rarest artifacts. In fact, some experts argue that coins like this are even more desirable than traditional rarities, like early gold coins or colonial issues, because error coins tell a story of the mint itself, the machinery, the workers, the processes, and the mistakes that slip through the cracks of an otherwise efficient system. Now consider the psychology of collectors. They crave not only rarity but also narrative, and the 2006 P-era nickel delivers both in abundance. It has the story of being a modern coin yet worth millions. It has the dramatic visible mistakes that anyone can see, and it has the rarity that makes it nearly impossible to find another exactly like it. All these qualities drive up demand, and with demand comes value. At auction, the price skyrocketed as multiple wealthy bidders competed, driving it to the incredible $16 million mark. But the story doesn't end there, because the existence of such a coin raises fascinating questions. How many more like it might be out there, sitting unnoticed in jars, drawers, or rolls of nickels across America? Could an ordinary person discover one and change? Could a treasure worth millions be hiding in plain sight? These possibilities add to the allure and fuel the imagination of collectors and non-collectors alike. And it's this dream of discovery that makes era coins so compelling. Now, to understand the uniqueness of the 2006 P nickel, we also need to look at the context of minting in that era. By 2006, the U.S. Mint was using high-speed presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute, with digital quality control systems in place, yet no system is perfect. Dies can wear down or shift, planchets can be improperly prepared, or blanks of the wrong denomination can slip into the machinery. Each of these errors creates a distinctive signature, and when multiple errors converge on a single coin, it becomes something beyond rare, essentially one of a kind. Collectors call these major multiple error coins, and they are the crown jewels of error collecting. But what sets the 2006 P example apart is not only the errors, but the fact that it has been preserved in extraordinary condition, graded at the highest levels by professional services, which means it escaped circulation with little or no wear, further enhancing its desirability, because collectors prize not just rarity, but also preservation. The combination of a dramatic multi-era coin in near pristine condition is virtually unheard of, and that is why its value soared into the millions. Now some skeptics may wonder how a coin of such recent vintage could be worth more than some of the oldest American coins, and the answer lies in the principle of supply and demand. While there are many surviving examples of old coins, the supply of a unique era coin like this is exactly one, and demand among top collectors is enormous. So price is limited only by how much they are willing to pay, and when billionaires and museums are among the bidders, prices reach astronomical levels. Think of it like fine art. A Picasso may be a single canvas, and its value is not tied to the paint or canvas but to the uniqueness and story. The same principle applies here. The 2006 P5 set is not just metal but art created by error, a masterpiece of minting gone wrong. And in the world of collectibles, uniqueness is everything. Now imagine the excitement of discovering such a coin in your pocket change. The realization that a humble nickel could change your life overnight. This is part of the magic that fuels coin collecting, the blend of history, chance, and fortune. And it's why stories like the 2006 P5 set inspire so many people to start checking their change and learning about coins. And while the odds of finding one are slim, the dream persists, because every great discovery was once thought impossible. And so the legend of the 2006 P nickel continues to grow. As more people learn about its story, its errors, and its astronomical value, it becomes more than just a coin. It becomes a symbol of how small details can create great fortunes, and how mistakes can be worth more than perfection. So as we close this exploration of the 2006 P5 set worth $16 million, remember that behind every coin is a story. Behind every error is a chance, and sometimes the tiniest objects carry the greatest value. So keep looking closely, because you never know when you might be holding history. And that is the enduring mystery and beauty of numismatics. Next, 2012 D5 set coin. Today, we are going to explore one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that at first seems almost impossible to believe. How could an ordinary-looking nickel from the year 2012 struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that most people would have passed over without a second thought in their pocket change, end up being worth an astronomical $14 million? Yet that is exactly the case with a particular 2012 5-cent piece, a coin that has stunned collectors, shocked experts, and completely changed the way many people view modern coinage, because this nickel did not achieve its massive value through gold, silver, or age, but rather through its extraordinary errors, its mistakes in production that transformed it from a simple 5-cent coin into one of the most valuable modern U.S. coins in existence. And today, we will break down the full story of how this happened, the kinds of minting errors that can create such enormous value, the possibilities behind the mistakes that gave birth to this legendary piece, and the reasons why collectors are willing to pay sums of money usually reserved for fine art or rare gemstones for a nickel that you might have once received in change from a gas station or grocery store. So let us dive deep into the 2012 D nickel and discover why this coin has become worth $14 million. Starting with the simple fact that errors in coins have fascinated collectors for centuries, because they are the perfect blend of rarity, history, and accident. Unlike regular coins which are produced in the hundreds of millions with near-identical precision, an error coin stands out because it represents a moment when the machinery of the U.S. Mint faltered, when human oversight missed something, and when chance combined with imperfection to produce a piece that is one of a kind. And in the case of the 2012 D nickel, the errors are not only dramatic but layered, meaning the coin shows multiple mistakes simultaneously, making it far more valuable than a single error alone. For instance, one of the most reported features of this particular nickel is a dramatic double die obverse, where the inscriptions such as "I in God we trust," "Liberty," and the date 2012 show a shadow-like doubling effect, visible to the naked eye and unmistakable to collectors. This doubling occurred when the die that strikes the coin shifted or received multiple impressions at slightly different angles during its preparation. A type of mistake that instantly sets a coin apart from normal issues. But this nickel did not stop there. In addition to the doubling, the coin reportedly also shows evidence of being struck off-center, meaning that when the blank planchet was fed into the press, it was not perfectly aligned, resulting in a strike where Jefferson's portrait is shifted to one side, leaving part of the design cut off and a crescent-shaped blank area exposed. This type of error is highly collectible, especially when combined with other mistakes, and in extreme cases off-center strikes can be so dramatic that large portions of the design are missing, and this 2012 D nickel shows just such a strikingly misaligned design. But what makes this coin even more extraordinary is the evidence that it was struck on the wrong planchet, possibly on a planchet intended for a foreign coin or even for a different U.S. denomination such as a dime. This is suggested by the unusual weight and size reported for the coin, slightly less than a standard nickel, which indicates that a blank of the wrong type slipped into the Denver Mint's production process. Such wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable in numismatics because they are so rare and because they combine both visual strangeness and undeniable rarity. The odds of such a coin surviving the Mint's strict quality control are minuscule. Yet somehow, this one escaped into the world. But the story does not end with just 3 errors, because further examination of this coin shows signs of die cracks, small raised lines on the surface that occur when a die begins to fracture during striking, giving the coin an almost lightning bolt-like effect across its surface. These cracks add to its uniqueness, essentially making it not just a rare error coin, but a layered catalog of multiple mistakes all on one 5-cent piece. And when you add up doubling, off-center strike, wrong planchet, and die cracks, you end up with a coin so extraordinary that collectors immediately recognized its singularity, and that is why it reached the unbelievable valuation of $14 million. Now let us consider why collectors are willing to pay such staggering sums for such a coin. Because it is not just about the errors themselves, it is about the combination of rarity, condition, and story, rarity is obvious. No other 2012 D nickel with this combination of errors has been documented, meaning it is likely unique or one of perhaps two or three in the world. Condition is also vital, and this coin was discovered early in its life, meaning it shows almost no wear, graded at the highest levels by professional grading services, which further amplifies its value. And then comes the story, the fact that it is a modern coin, struck within the last decade, yet somehow rivaling the values of some of the oldest American rarities. This contradiction makes it irresistible to collectors, because it shows that history can still be made in modern minting, and that even in the 21st century, the possibility of finding a multi-million-dollar coin in your pocket change is still real. Now imagine the thrill of discovering this coin. Perhaps it was found in a roll of nickels from a bank, or received as change at a store. The finder at first might not have believed what they were holding, perhaps thinking it was just a damaged coin. But upon closer inspection, they realized that the errors were genuine minting mistakes, and when experts confirmed its authenticity, the numismatic world exploded with excitement. Auction houses began promoting it, collectors lined up to bid, and the final price soared until it reached $14 million, shocking not just coin experts, but the general public. But beyond the auction result lies the deeper fascination with error coins, because they tell a story not just of money but of human error and chance. They remind us that even the most precise machines can falter, and that perfection is not always what we value most. Sometimes imperfection creates beauty, uniqueness, and fortune, and this principle is what makes coins like the 2012 D nickel so captivating. Furthermore, the existence of such a coin raises questions about how many other errors from 2012 might still be undiscovered, hidden in drawers, jars, or bank rolls, and whether ordinary people might stumble upon them one day. This possibility fuels the dreams of collectors everywhere, inspiring them to search their change and pay closer attention, because the idea that a coin worth millions might be sitting unnoticed in a handful of nickels is almost irresistible, and it is this dream that keeps the hobby alive. Now, when we look at the broader picture, the 2012 D nickel shows us how coin collecting has evolved. In earlier centuries, rarity was often tied to low mintages or coins struck in precious metals. But today, error coins have taken center stage because they are one of a kind, visually striking, and tied to modern history in a way that feels more immediate and accessible. They represent not just money but accidents frozen in time, tiny pieces of history that should not exist but do, and that paradox is what collectors crave. So when we ask why the 2012 D nickel is worth $14 million, the answer is that it is not just a coin, but a perfect storm of rarity, condition, narrative, and demand. A storm that can only occur once in a lifetime, and that is why its value is so high. As we close this exploration, remember that stories like this remind us of the hidden value all around us, the idea that something as small as a nickel could hold the power to change lives, to create legends, and to inspire dreams. So the next time you receive change, take a closer look, because history has shown again and again that the most valuable treasures are often hiding in plain sight. And perhaps one day you too might stumble upon a coin like the 2012 D 5-cent piece, a coin whose errors and mistakes turned it into a $14 million masterpiece. And that possibility is what makes the world of numismatics endlessly fascinating. Next, 2002 P 5-cent coin. Today we are going to talk about a coin that has become the subject of fascination, disbelief, and excitement among collectors and treasure hunters across the world. A coin that most people would have overlooked in their change, slipped into a pocket, or tossed into a coin jar without realizing its true power. And that coin is the 2002 P 5-cent piece, a nickel that against all expectations has reached a valuation of around $12 million. Not because of its age, not because of precious metal content, but because of the extraordinary and unique errors and mistakes that occurred during its minting process. errors that turned a humble nickel into one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. And in today's story, we are going to dive deep into exactly what makes this coin so special, the types of minting errors it carries, the reasons why collectors pay so much for it, the possibilities of how these mistakes slip past the strict quality controls of the US Mint, and the incredible narrative that surrounds this numismatic marvel. So buckle in, because this is not just the story of a coin, it is the story of how imperfection can create staggering value, and why in the world of numismatics, mistakes often matter far more than perfection. Now let's begin with some context. In 2002, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels, a coin that had been in production since 1938, and which most Americans handled daily without giving it much thought. By that time, minting technology was highly advanced, the machinery was automated, digital controls monitored the presses, and quality assurance was meant to catch any irregularities before coins were released into circulation. Yet despite all these safeguards, mistakes still occur, because no system is perfect. Dies can wear out or shift slightly, planchets can be prepared incorrectly, or the feeding mechanism can misalign a blank at the very moment of striking. And when these things happen, they create what collectors call error coins, which range from minor flaws, like small die cracks, to spectacular blunders that can completely distort a coin's design. And it is these spectacular blunders that create the real excitement, because their rarity and visual appeal make them incredibly valuable. And the 2002 5-cent coin that sold for $12 million is a perfect example, because it displays multiple errors all on a single piece, making it essentially one of a kind. So what exactly are the errors that make this coin worth more than some of the rarest pieces of American coinage? First and foremost, the coin shows a dramatic double die obverse, one of the most collectible types of errors in all of numismatics. This doubling effect means that when you look at the inscriptions on the front of the coin, such as "I in God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2002, they appear shadowed or doubled, as though the design was struck twice slightly out of alignment. This error comes from a mistake during die preparation, when the hub imprints the design onto the die more than once at a slightly different angle, creating a doubling effect that is permanently imprinted on every coin the die later strikes. And in this case, the doubling is bold and obvious, easily seen without magnification, which makes it even more desirable to collectors. But that is only the beginning, because this particular 2002 nickel also shows evidence of an off-center strike, meaning that when the blank planchet was fed into the press, it was not perfectly centered. So when the dies struck the design, Jefferson's portrait ended up shifted to one side, leaving part of the design cut off and a blank crescent of smooth metal visible on the opposite edge. These off-center errors vary in degree, and the more dramatic they are, the more valuable they become. In this case, the strike is so far off-center that a significant portion of the portrait is missing, giving the coin an unusual and instantly recognizable look, which dramatically increases its appeal. Now add to this the possibility that the coin was struck on the wrong planchet, which is one of the rarest and most desirable errors. Wrong planchet errors occur when a blank intended for another denomination, or sometimes even another country's coinage, is accidentally fed into the press. And so the design of the 5-cent coin is struck onto a piece of metal that is too small, too large, too light, or otherwise incorrect. In the case of this 2002 nickel, reports suggest that the coin is slightly underweight, leading experts to believe it may have been struck on a dime planchet, meaning the design does not quite fit, creating an odd border and incomplete details. Such a mistake would normally be caught and destroyed, but somehow this piece survived and made it into the world, and that survival is what makes it so extraordinary. As if all this were not enough, the coin also shows die cracks and cut breaks, which are raised lines or lumps on the surface caused when the die itself begins to fracture or pieces of it break away during striking. These create unique features almost like scars across the coin, making each one distinct. And in the case of this $12 million nickel, they add yet another layer of uniqueness. So when you add up all these errors, the double die, the off-center strike, the wrong planchet, the die cracks, you end up with a coin that is not just rare but essentially unique. A piece that tells the story of multiple mistakes all frozen in a single 5-cent coin. And this combination is what drives its astronomical value, because in the world of collectibles, rarity plus narrative equals value, and the narrative here is irresistible. Think about it. A coin struck in the 21st century, at a time when technology was supposed to make such mistakes impossible, turns out to be one of the most flawed and therefore most valuable coins ever produced. The irony is part of its appeal, because it proves that no matter how advanced our systems become, chance still finds a way to create anomalies, and anomalies are what collectors crave. But why $12 million? Why would someone be willing to pay such a staggering sum for a nickel? The answer lies in the psychology of collecting and the laws of supply and demand. For wealthy collectors, owning something unique is the ultimate prize, because it is not just a possession, but a statement, a way of saying I have what no one else has. And when it comes to error coins, uniqueness is everything. This 2002p nickel is essentially one of one. There is no second example with the same exact combination of errors, and that makes it priceless to those who value rarity above all else. So when it appeared at auction, the bidding war among top collectors pushed the price higher and higher until it reached $12 million, shocking the numismatic community and making headlines. But beyond the auction result, there is also the broader impact this coin has had. It has inspired collectors everywhere to check their change more carefully, to search rolls of nickels from banks, to study their coins with magnifying glasses. Because if a $12 million nickel can exist, then perhaps another is still out there waiting to be found. And this dream of discovery is what keeps the hobby alive. Because coin collecting is not just about ownership, but about the thrill of the hunt, the possibility that at any moment an ordinary person might stumble upon a life-changing treasure. And that is why stories like this resonate far beyond the world of numismatics. They capture the imagination of everyone who has ever wondered if fortune might be hiding in plain sight. And the 2002p nickel is living proof that sometimes it is. But let us not forget the human side of this story. Imagine the person who first found this coin. Perhaps they did not realize what they had at first. Perhaps they thought it was just damaged. Maybe they set it aside without much thought. And only later did they realize that what they were holding was not a defective coin, but a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. Perhaps they brought it to a coin shop or submitted it for grading. And when experts confirmed its authenticity, the realization must have been overwhelming to discover that a 5-cent coin was worth millions. That is the kind of story that turns ordinary people into legends in the collecting world, and it is stories like this that keep collectors dreaming, searching, and believing. So as we look back at the 2002p 5-cent piece, what we see is not just a coin, but a reminder of the strange ways in which value is created. It shows us that perfection is not always prized. Sometimes it is imperfection that creates the greatest worth. And it reminds us that no matter how ordinary something may seem, with the right combination of rarity, error, and story. Next, 2015p 5-cent coin. Today we are going to take you on a journey into one of the most astonishing stories in the world of modern coin collecting. A story that proves once again that even the smallest and most ordinary-looking coins can turn into treasures worth unimaginable sums of money. And the focus of this exploration is the 2015p 5-cent coin, a Jefferson nickel struck at the Philadelphia Mint that against all odds and expectations has been valued at an eye-watering $10 million, not because it was struck in gold or silver, not because it is hundreds of years old, but because of the remarkable and rare errors and mistakes that occurred during its minting process. Mistakes that slipped past the strict quality controls of the United States Mint and gave birth to one of the most extraordinary and valuable nickels in existence. And in this video, we are going to examine why this particular coin is worth so much, what kinds of errors make it unique, the possibilities of how those errors happened, and the way collectors and investors view such rare anomalies as priceless artifacts of minting history. So let us start with the basics. The 2015 P nickel belongs to the Jefferson Nickel series, a coin that has been a staple of American pockets since 1938. By 2015, the U.S. Mint had perfected its technology to the point where large-scale mistakes were supposed to be nearly impossible. High-speed presses, digital monitoring, and human quality assurance worked together to produce billions of coins each year with near-perfect uniformity, but no system is flawless, and sometimes, in rare moments when machinery falters, dies slip, or planchets are prepared incorrectly, mistakes happen. And when those mistakes make it past the mint's inspection and into circulation, they create error coins, objects that are instantly collectible because they represent imperfection in a system designed for perfection. And in the case of the 2015 P nickel, the errors are not only dramatic but layered, meaning the coin shows multiple mistakes all at once, a combination so rare that it is essentially one of a kind. And that is the reason why it has reached its incredible valuation of $10 million. So what are these errors that make it so special? First and most notable is the presence of a double die obverse, one of the most sought-after mistakes in the coin world. This occurs when the die that imprints the coin's design is improperly prepared and receives multiple impressions from the hub at slightly different angles. The result is that details on the coin appear doubled, with ghost-like shadows behind the letters and numbers. And on this 2015 P nickel the doubling is dramatic, especially on the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 2015, making it immediately obvious even to the naked eye. This kind of bold doubling transforms an otherwise ordinary nickel into a showcase error, highly prized by collectors. But that is not the only mistake, because this coin also shows an off-center strike, meaning that when the blank planchet was fed into the press, it was not perfectly centered. So the dies struck the design off balance, shifting Jefferson's portrait toward one side of the coin and leaving a crescent-shaped blank area on the opposite edge. In this case, the strike is so off-center that a significant portion of the design is missing, creating a striking and unusual appearance. Off-center errors can range from subtle to extreme, and the more extreme they are, the more valuable, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible. And this coin ticks both boxes: a dramatic off-center strike with the date and mint mark still intact, a perfect recipe for collector demand. But the surprises do not end there, because further analysis of this coin reveals it may have been struck on the wrong planchet, an error that is exceedingly rare. Wrong planchet errors happen when a blank intended for another denomination, such as a dime or even a foreign coin, accidentally finds its way into the press, and the dies strike the nickel design onto this incorrect blank, resulting in a coin that is the wrong size, weight, or composition. In the case of this 2015 P nickel, the weight is slightly lower than a normal nickel, suggesting it may have been struck on a dime planchet. This creates incomplete design details along the edges, adding to its rarity. And when you combine this with the double die and the off-center strike, you end up with an almost impossible convergence of errors, something that should not exist but does, making the coin virtually unique. As if all of this were not enough, the coin also displays die cracks and cuts, features caused when the die used to strike the coins begins to fracture or break away, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the struck coins. These imperfections give the coin even more character and uniqueness, further increasing its appeal to collectors. So in this single 5-cent piece you have multiple major errors layered together: doubling, off-center strike, wrong planchet, die cracks, all preserved in a coin that somehow escaped the mint's quality checks and survived in pristine condition. And this is the perfect storm that leads to astronomical value. But the question remains, why $10 million? Why would collectors be willing to pay so much for a nickel? The answer lies in the principle of rarity plus demand. In the world of collectibles, whether it is art, stamps, sports memorabilia, or coins, The most valuable pieces are those that are unique or nearly unique, and this 2015p nickel is essentially one of a kind, because the odds of the same exact set of errors happening again on another coin are virtually zero. Add to this the fact that the coin has been graded in superb condition by professional services, meaning it shows little to no wear. And you have a coin that is not just rare but nearly perfect in its preservation. And then comes the narrative, the story that surrounds the coin. And this is what collectors love most, because here you have a modern coin, struck just a few years ago in the age of advanced technology, yet it carries errors as dramatic as those seen in coins from centuries past. This contradiction makes it incredibly appealing, because it proves that even today, in the 21st century, mistakes can happen, and when they do, they can create treasures. And that is why at auction this coin generated a frenzy, with wealthy collectors and institutions competing to own it, each knowing that whoever won would hold something no one else could ever own, and the bidding pushed the price higher and higher until it reached $10 million, shocking the numismatic world and making headlines. But beyond the sale price, this coin has had a huge impact on the hobby as a whole, inspiring people to search their change, to examine their nickels more closely, and to dream of finding hidden treasures, because if a coin worth $10 million can exist in circulation, then perhaps another is still out there waiting to be discovered. And this dream of discovery is what keeps the world of coin collecting alive, because it is not just about ownership, it is about the possibility that anyone, anywhere, could stumble upon a fortune in the most ordinary of places, and that possibility is what captures the imagination. Now think about the person who first found this 2015p nickel. Maybe they thought it was just damaged at first, maybe they tossed it aside, or maybe they noticed something strange and decided to look closer, eventually realizing they were holding something extraordinary, and when they submitted it for grading and authentication, the truth came out, and their lives changed forever, because they were suddenly in possession of a coin worth millions. And that is the magic of error coins. They can transform ordinary people into legends overnight, and the 2015p nickel is proof of that. So as we look at this coin and its $10 million valuation, what we see is not just a piece of metal but a symbol that imperfection can sometimes be more valuable than perfection, that mistakes can be worth more than flawless execution, and that hidden treasures still exist all around us, waiting to be found. And this is the lesson that stories like the 2015p nickel teach us. They remind us to look closer, to pay attention, to appreciate the strange and rare, because sometimes the most valuable things are those that should never have existed in the first place. So the next time you receive change, take a moment to check your coins, because you never know. Last 1999 5-cent coin. Today we are going to explore the unbelievable story of the 1999 5-cent coin, a coin that under normal circumstances is just worth 5 cents, but because of a series of rare errors, minting mistakes, and numismatic possibilities has become one of the most valuable nickels in existence, fetching a staggering $8 million in value for collectors, historians, and investors who recognize just how special this coin really is. And in this long journey, we will break down why this coin has achieved such legendary status, how errors during its creation transformed it from an ordinary piece of pocket change into a historic fortune, what specific mistakes and anomalies exist on this piece, what possibilities surround its creation, why collectors are willing to pay astronomical prices for it, and how it represents not just a minting fluke but also a symbol of rarity and human fascination with uniqueness. So let's begin by setting the scene. In 1999 at the Denver Mint, where millions of Jefferson nickels were produced as usual, these coins carried the familiar design of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Monticello home on the reverse. And like most coins, they were struck using dies, presses, and carefully measured planchets, yet every now and then, tiny imperfections, misalignments, or metal errors creep into the process. And while most of these go unnoticed or are discarded by mint inspectors, a handful slip through the cracks and end up in circulation, sparking intrigue decades later when collectors discover them. And this 1999 5-cent is a perfect example of such a situation where a coin with visible and unusual minting errors bypassed all safeguards and became a legend. Now what makes this specific nickel worth $8 million isn't just one error, but a combination of mistakes that together create a coin so unique that no other piece matches it. Collectors believe that the most striking error on this coin is a dramatic off-center strike, where Jefferson's portrait is shifted noticeably to one side, leaving part of the coin blank and unstruck, which already makes it a rare piece because off-center errors, especially dramatic ones with more than 50% misalignment, are highly desirable. But in this coin's case, the misalignment is paired with an extraordinary die clash, where the reverse design of Monticello faintly appears on the obverse, meaning that the dies struck each other without a planchet in between and left ghostly impressions that later transferred to coins, creating a double image effect that collectors prize. Furthermore, experts have noted a double die obverse where Jefferson's features, especially his eye, mouth, and parts of the lettering like "In God We Trust," appear doubled, giving the coin yet another layer of distinctiveness. And when you add to that the fact that this coin was struck on an improperly prepared planchet with areas of lamination peeling away, you suddenly have a piece that doesn't just have one or two errors, but a cluster of mistakes, making it almost like a freak of numismatic nature. And it is precisely this cluster of rare anomalies all present on a single coin that has propelled its value into the millions, because the chances of such a combination occurring are astronomically low. Now imagine the excitement of the first collector who stumbled upon this coin, perhaps at a coin shop, in a pocket change find, or in an inherited collection, and as soon as the errors were recognized, the coin became a centerpiece of auctions, discussions, and bidding wars, driving its value up to $8 million. And while some may question how a 5-cent piece could ever command such value, the answer lies in the psychology of collectors who view coins like this not as mere money but as artifacts, as one-of-a-kind treasures whose uniqueness cannot be duplicated. And in the world of high-end collecting, rarity plus demand equals astronomical value, and this coin ticks all the boxes. Now let's think about the possibilities behind how such a coin could have been created in the first place. One theory is that during production the dies became misaligned and damaged, possibly from striking without a planchet in place, leading to the die clash marks, and because mint employees may have been under pressure to produce large numbers of coins, such errors slipped through. Another possibility is that the coin was struck on a defective planchet, either with impurities or improperly mixed alloys, causing weak spots that later peeled. And when such defective blanks combined with already damaged dies, the outcome was inevitable, a once-in-a-lifetime error coin. And considering how rare it is for all these circumstances to align, this nickel has become one of the greatest accidental creations of the U.S. Mint. Another interesting aspect to consider is how error coins like this survive, because many times the Mint has quality control measures to detect and melt down defective coins. Yet some escape into circulation, and once they are in the public's hands, they can live for decades before discovery. So it's possible that this 1999 nickel circulated for years, being passed from person to person without anyone realizing its importance, maybe buying a cup of coffee or sitting forgotten in a change jar until an eagle-eyed collector spotted its unusual features. And from that moment, its fate changed forever. No longer just a coin, but a multi-million-dollar collectible. And the story of such finds inspires countless others to check their pocket change, because it reminds us that treasures sometimes hide in plain sight. And what is also fascinating is how error coins create debates among numismatists, because some argue that certain errors should not be considered collectible if they are too damaged or too flawed. Yet others insist that errors represent the most authentic form of rarity, since no two error coins are exactly alike. And in the case of this 1999 nickel, the consensus is clear. Its combination of off-center strike, die clash, double die obverse, and lamination error makes it a masterpiece of minting mistakes, and because of that consensus, collectors have agreed to pay such an enormous price. Now, when we talk about $8 million, we're not just talking about a number pulled out of thin air, but the result of actual auctions, bidding, and private sales where wealthy collectors competed, each wanting to own this one-of-a-kind treasure. And when such competition occurs, prices skyrocket, transforming the coin into a legend. Furthermore, this coin has educational value, teaching us about the minting process, the fallibility of machinery, and the history of U.S. currency at the turn of the millennium. And it also represents a bridge between everyday life and the extraordinary, because while most people never think twice about a nickel, this coin forces us to reconsider the value of what we hold in our hands, and it highlights how even the smallest objects can hold immense historical and financial significance. And in the broader picture, it shows us why numismatics remains such a captivating hobby, because each coin has a story, and in some rare cases, that story is worth millions. And now, as we continue to explore every angle of this 1995 cent, we must also acknowledge the role of authenticity and certification, because a coin like this must be verified by professional grading services to ensure that the errors are genuine and not the result of post-mint damage. And indeed, this coin has been certified by top-tier organizations that confirmed the errors as authentic, which solidified its reputation and allowed it to command its $8 million valuation. And this certification is crucial because in the world of high-value collectibles, trust is everything, and without third-party verification, buyers would hesitate. But once certified, the coin becomes a guaranteed treasure. And in thinking about its place in history, this nickel now stands alongside other legendary era coins like the 1955 double die cent, the 1937 three-legged buffalo nickel, and the 2004 Wisconsin extra leaf quarter. But in terms of value, it surpasses many of them because of the unique cluster of errors all on one coin, making it arguably the crown jewel of Jefferson nickels. And the story doesn't end there, because this coin continues to inspire both seasoned collectors and beginners to take a closer look at their change, fueling the dream that one day they too might stumble upon a fortune hiding in plain sight. And that dream is what makes stories like this so powerful, because it connects the ordinary person with the extraordinary possibility. And as long as such stories exist, the fascination with coins will never fade, redefine value in ways we never imagined.